anybody's been able to cram that many slogans into one answer, and this is coming from me. This is coming from me.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, there's no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that, Mr.
It's too bad that minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Canada know that this government has their back. It will continue. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Party opposite talks slogans and rhetoric and outdated slogans. But, Mr. Speaker, we're focused on building the strongest economy. Mr. Focus, we will deliver for Canadians because that's what Canadians expect from a serious government.
Welcome. Welcome to the NAP, the no answer period, where we cover the question period, prefaced by a review of the far left evil that has beset our land and the events that surround it. The NAP precedes question period by 45 minutes, and we'll cover the lower house until the government decides to stop showing up. We also keep score, and we describe how we keep score in the description down below. And of course, we are streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube. I'd like to thank all my followers and subscribers for doing so. And if you're new, please give us a thumbs, like, share, subscribe, follow, all that other jazz, that depending on whatever platform you're on. The chat is up also, so please feel free to ask anything and keep it clean. Don't be abusive. Or do. I don't really care. Got a thick skin. Comments drive the algorithm up when I'm not driving it down on forbidden words. So if you're watching this on repeat afterwards, please leave us a comment down below. You're guaranteed to get a response. And after the live show, we will do a quick little review of what we've discussed and probably finish out with an outro of yesterday's ORNAP Supplement. And speaking of ORNAP Supplements, I don't really think the Liberal Party is very happy about actually winning the budget vote. Now, we talked about it here, the machinations that went on, and they were necessary, obviously, because Canadians are just not ready for an election, not because they just had one, but because they're still not smart enough to actually vote in their best interest, given the last 4 elections, and given how the pollsters seem to be coming out, especially with this record that the current government has. You know, like in every measurable aspect, they just don't measure up to anything or any of their own promises. Well, they're pretty quick to fall back on existing support systems that are already in Canada, making it sound like they're their own, or they're really going on about that bag lunch that they're giving kids at school, aren't they? That's everything seems to come down to that bag lunch. Good for them. Well, on the aspect of them not winning, not wanting to win the budget vote, well, I really don't think there's much enthusiasm there. If we compare the enthusiasm they had before actually winning the vote, you know, they were all on it like, you have to pass it. We don't want a Christmas election. You got to do it right now. Please, please do. And then as soon as they get it, Carney looks like his dog died. And Philip Champagne, he looks like he's in a zone on antidepressants, trying to get through a funeral. It's crazy. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at that supplement right now.
Moving forward.
Sorry, I just saw that the supplement there went wonky on me. So just let me fix that. And we'll just go into a little standby mode here.
Canada. Moving forward. Building the country, protecting our community. Negotiate more with the opposition.
Prime Minister, can you talk a little bit about your reaction to the budget and also the fact that you have agreed with Elizabeth May in regards to meeting the Paris climate targets? At the same time, you want to sign an MOU with Alberta in regards to pipeline. How are you going to square that?
Well, first off, let me just say that
very pleased that we passed the budget vote. There are more votes, of course, to come through the budget process, but an important step for our country, protecting our communities, protecting our borders, protecting our way of life, building our country, building locally, building new trade infrastructure, building as an energy superpower, goes to your question. And Canada is blessed. We're blessed with immense natural resources, everything from hydroelectricity through to conventional oil and gas. We're part of an energy transition. We're going to help to lead it. That means Alberta, that means Quebec, that means Ontario, that means all of Canada, it means all forms of energy. And then last and most importantly, this is about empowering Canadians. It's about helping all Canadians get ahead. As I say, protecting our way of life, protecting our transfers to Canadian, getting affordability back established through a tax cut, as well as our essential social programs, everything from the National Food Program through to health care, child care, pharmacare, dental care. All of that is in the budget. I salute the 170 members of the House who supported it. I'm glad it came through, and we're going to continue to work.
I just want to say it's a great pleasure. There's something special when you come out west and in Vancouver. I'm grateful to the Vancouver Board of Trade. A great meeting this morning with business leaders, community leaders, scholars, researchers. For me, the budget 2025 speaks to people of Vancouver, speaks to British Columbians, speaks to businesses here, because, you know, this is an investment budget that puts Canadians front and center. There's a lot of measures that speaks to people from that part of the country. Obviously, we say we want to double our export, and obviously this is a Vancouver and the whole British Columbia is going to be the gateway to growing our export to the Indo-Pacific region. The productivity super deduction we talked about is good news for business owners, small businesses, for entrepreneurs, innovators. We know that this region is very strong when it comes to life sciences, to the digital economy, obviously to natural resources, mining.
The Conservatives want the truth. We'll tell them the truth.
And there's another celebration coming, and that's Christmas.
The only people who seem to want a Christmas election is this Liberal government.
With the leader of the opposition, that Grinchy guy, Mr. Time after time after time after time.
And help us avoid a Christmas election that absolutely nobody wants.
Will they vote for a Christmas election that nobody wants?
And not support our budget and cause a Christmas election.
Support the budget and avoid a Christmas election.
This and pass our budget and not cause a Christmas election.
So we can avoid a very destructive budget, a very destructive election rather, trying to get this budget through so that we can avoid a Christmas election. This budget to pass and to avoid a Christmas election.
By supporting our budget on November 4th and avoiding a Christmas election. I hope that they will join us in avoiding a Christmas election by supporting the budget.
Speaker, I hope the members opposite will support this budget, avoid a Christmas election.
And we trust they will join us and vote for the budget and avoid a Christmas election.
They can help us pass the budget and avoid a Christmas election. Will they do that?
The only thing more frightening this Halloween than the Conservatives' disinformation in this House is a Christmas election which nobody wants. They're going to force a Christmas election upon Canadians. There's nothing more spooky than that.
Mike, there you go. Sorry about the technical difficulties, folks. The little screen went wonky. I thought I had that one set up, and then of course I had the boom mic on and the audio, and if it was probably warbly and stuff. Anyways, you want to watch the whole video? It's on the website. Thank you all for watching it so far. So, what are we going to have for Christmas? More slogans, I think. And really not much relief for the Canadians who continue to suffer. In fact, every report that seems to be coming out today just seems to show that whatever it is the Liberals are doing in Canada, it's not driving investment here. In fact, people are fleeing like there's no tomorrow. Another report was out today. I don't know if I actually captured it. Probably have to show it tomorrow. I have enough to actually cover today. But doctors and nurses in healthcare, which we knew already, you should just waiting for a family doctor that you'll never ever have again here in Canada, especially not under this government, because doctors are leaving, healthcare workers are leaving. They're looking south of the border and they're saying, "Oh my God, look how much money I get to keep after taxes. I don't have to take it up the biological cavity when I work in the States." So a lot of these healthcare workers are thinking, and of course, people goes, "Oh yeah, well, what about your healthcare?" Yeah, what about the healthcare? What about the healthcare that's been destroyed that has no doctors? Yeah, you can have free healthcare. You're free to wait in the emergency room for hours on end. Yeah, you're free to be on a waiting list for months on end to see a doctor in order to see that doctor to get a following appointment with a specialist. So there's lots and lots of what's there. So unless, of course, you're really healthy to start with, odds are, unless, of course, you're rich, odds of you surviving in Canada on Canada's healthcare system are becoming dwindly significant. I mean, as in it's getting harder and harder to stay alive in Canada or stay fed for a lot of people. And when you're a professional here and you're looking at your taxes being sucked out of your wallet and you get very little in return, well, of course, people are going to leave. And of course, investment's not going to come to Canada. But that's this budget was supposed to change all that. Yeah, the budget's supposed to change all that. Well, we'll see how that goes. So let's get right into our stories. Make sure we have everything set up here. Big news on X. Let's do fade there. X drops country origins in 72 hours. Bots and grifters on blast. Okay, so in the next 3 days, profiles are reportedly getting a transparency upgrade, letting you peek at the country of an account's based in straight from the About This Account tab. Think the page showing a account based in US plus join date with location, verification deets, affiliation status, username changes, and even app store connection. Wow, that's very good. This move got spice. Fake mega ops, catfish crews, foreign troll farms could get outed big time as replies are buzzing about grifters quaking and bots vanishing. Sure, some VPNs might dodge it, but it's a step towards cleaner feeds and less misinformation and mayhem. So this is very good, actually, because one of the major complaints by the QCJO press, these guys here, right, is that social media has no checks and balances. That is full of bots. You can't trust anything they say. Meanwhile, you can trust them, right, because they're government funded. This is just one more aspect of clarity. This is very good. I invite this. My account has only changed its name once. It was obviously a more improved business decision. A lot of my writings have changed in the past 2 decades, and this is more encompassing. So, yeah, I look forward to this. So, once again, public service announcement. The Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization encompasses 95%, if not more, of the mainstream media that most people consume in Canada on one point or another, and therefore have their attitudes influenced by this government controlled media. And here's yet another example. Yesterday, I joined David Cochrane on his CBC Power and Politics show to discuss latest polling on Pierre Poilievre and discuss the paradox facing the Conservative Party. It seems interesting that the press and the media and the polls are all creating all this information about Poilievre, about the leader of the opposition. But they're not talking about the budget. They're not talking about the specifics in the budget, which are missing, as you just saw in the video that I showed. You can hear them rambling on about all this stuff that they're going to do. It's all great for Canada. Yeah, but they got no specifics, except, of course, for some things that are specifically going to increase Mark Carney's financial portfolio because, of course, these things are geared towards this net zero insanity, like low carbon LNG or fuel or whatever it is they want to make in northern areas of BC that requires an electric system in order to work the kiln, or maybe that's what it is. It's a kiln, so it'd be a foundry. But yeah, it's far more expensive than using coal in order to fire up your metallurgy. So they're going to use electricity, which of course in BC they're already lacking for some reason because they have to import electricity into BC from the United States all the time. But sure, they're going to go ahead with this project. And of course, any electrical upgrades that you're going to see, of course, are also going to profit Mark Carney, probably in his Westinghouse uh, portfolio side. So here we go. So look at that. Here we have this pollster, and which was Abacus, right? And Abacus Data does have contracts with the federal government. Let's bring this up. To provide communications and opinion research services. For example, in November 2024, Global Affairs Canada awarded Abacus Data a contract worth over 100 grand for communications research services. These are business contracts for specific services, and it goes on and on. You can just Google this yourself, find this information. You know, you look at these pollsters and just go, is this pollster get funding from the government? And then Google will come back and tell you how they're getting the money. Sometimes it's, well, they're not technically being funded. You know, they're just getting paid on the side for these extra services. Oh, it's interesting that your company that puts out polls favorable to the government also does business with the government. That's not independence. That is just as dirty as the yellow journalism that we are exposed to every day. All in cahoots. The pollsters, the government, and the press. And even if the pollsters are telling the truth, I'm not going to believe them because they take money from the government. Why do they get that through their head? If you violate the obvious ethics of what makes you objective, you can't be objective no matter what song and dance you give us. Unless, of course, you use state power to arrest us and put us away, which would be the next step. So Canada is collapsing. So uh, Moose, I'm just going to play a little bit here of what he's got because I don't want to play his whole video. Obviously, I always go and watch David on his channel. He puts out about 2 videos minimum each day, and he has been tracking the financial insanity that is all incorporated into the background, and Mark Carney's got a massive spreadsheet. So let's just watch a little bit of this. Maybe get some sound on.
This writing here, honor mercy. This video here is Pierre Poilievre eating the apple, and then it has, according to our information, around 20 conservative MPs. Now it's 20. First it was 4, believing there needs to be a change in leadership of the political party. What is this garbage? I searched for this, and as I told this guy here, provide me a source, I can't find one. If you can't provide one, then you're going to be in trouble. Because it just says here, November 17th, 2025 translation, you can see Radio Canada. I looked all over Radio Canada. There seems to be no source for this information. Are the Liberals spreading propaganda, or does this exist and it's the CBC spreading propaganda? We got this article here, unease and lack of trust towards Pierre Poilievre. Throughout this article, they quote multiple conservatives, unnamed of course, that have a problem with Pierre Poilievre. He's been doing this for 20 years, but he seems to neither the desire nor the will to learn from his mistakes, says a caucus member. After his defeat, he should have changed his team, his style, his appeal to moderate voters, but he didn't, confides a conservative. This isn't journalism, this is propaganda. You have to put real sources in here if you want to have any credibility. Like, this is more filth from the CBC. Now, if there's conservatives coming out and saying this, then put them on record. Otherwise, you can't run the story. What is this? This is supposed to be Canada's top broadcaster. Meanwhile, we've got the CEO of the Institute of Canadian Citizenship saying that all of our best immigrants are leaving Canada. Doctors, healthcare workers, and scientists.
Today, we published data that make clear a startling fact. Canada's most capable immigrants are, in fact, most likely to leave. The 5-year departure rate for all permanent immigrants is about 5%, but for PhDs, it's 11%. Even worse, the professionals Canada needs most are those who stay least. Of the 16 most in-demand professions, 10 have retention rates that are below average, effectively reducing the contribution period for these people. The 5-year departure rate for immigrant healthcare workers is 36%. That's the same for scientists. The 5-year departure rate for experienced executives is 193% above average. Software developers, AI and cybersecurity professionals, managers in finance, engineering, architecture, the very people who can help Canada build the economy and infrastructure and housing of the future, all leave at above average rates.
The Liberals are destroying our country. This guy's got the numbers to prove it. And let's
We've been saying it for years, and of course, I said it in 2015 when they won the election. The Liberals would destroy Canada. Actually, 2 elections ago. The 2 elections ago or 3, who knows? Every election they seem to win recently. I remember walking into my Master Warrant Officer's office saying, oh my God, there we go again. This clown, and of course I was talking about Trudeau at the time, will continue to increase spending. He will spend like a drunken sailor on meth. He will indebt Canada to a point where the International Monetary Fund will have to take over our finances. And I think we're almost there. As I showed in the other video that I put out yesterday, looking at the actual IMF map right here, compared to where we were at in 2015, when they're talking about this made-up number of net to GDP, they're not talking about gross debt as a percentage of GDP, right? They're saying, oh, Canada's in great shape, great shape. But if we look at Germany, there we go. 2015, 71.2% of their GDP was the debt that they held. So, of course, obviously, the more debt you hold, the more interest you have to pay every year, which means that's less money that you're collecting in taxes that could actually be used for your people because you're paying the bankers and the bondholders. And in Canada, well, in 2015, it was 92%. That was after several years of conservative government, but you have to remember that in 2008, there was a financial crisis. And what the government did at the time under Harper, so if we go down and we bring ourselves down to 2007, we'll look at our finances, we're 67.2. We're actually doing rather good. Look at this, almost like the numbers today in Germany. And then we move it over to 2008. We hit the financial crisis, it starts going up. And then we go over to 2009. And look, we've jumped way up. That's because the government at the time went and decided to assume a bunch of debt that they needed to because financially, globally, money was down, revenue was down. And instead of cutting social services extreme amounts, the government took on debt at the time to maintain the services while also maintaining consumer confidence. And at the time, people were not fleeing like they're fleeing now. I mean, at the time, the taxes were still high because the Conservatives are still trying to dig out Canada from a hole from the prior Liberal government. Now, of course, comes to the end in 2015. Bring the slider over. And now by this time, the debt is at 92%. 92% of GDP. And of course, there is a budget surplus. Although there's this debt, there's a budget surplus, which means that whatever the government budgeted to spend, they actually didn't spend that amount. So they were hoping to use a surplus to pay down the debt. But what did the Liberals do? No, 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 no. All the Liberals did was spend like drunken monkeys on meth. And now here we are in 2025 in Germany. Germany is at 64.4%. So their debt climbed down. They're doing much better. And Canada's at 113.9%. That's right. We owe more money than what Canada's worth. I mean, if you're looking at percentage of gross domestic product that the country actually puts out, obviously there's wealth that's held here. I mean, if you took that into consideration, yes, we wouldn't be in debt by 113%, but that means we have to get rid of that wealth that we're holding. It's like selling your house to pay off your debts and you go, oh, I'm debt free, but then you don't have a place to live. Outstanding. So let's get back to our stories. Oh, we're almost, Parliament's almost about to sit on Wednesdays, if you weren't aware. Parliament starts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So they go straight into Singing O Canada, the statements from the members, and then they go into question period. And after that, it's the rest of the zoo. Now, David Lametti, this guy here, if you remember anything about the Freedom Convoy, you would remember this name, and you would also remember that this was one of the evil fudders that was very evil and lied. And as a lawyer, he knew better, but he did things anyway. But of course, when you're a liberal lackey and you go out of your way to ensure that people are turned into second-class citizens, that political prisoners are hunted down and taken care of in the courts and now under house arrest at home, as a threat to others, you ensure that banks confiscate people's accounts and money without due process. You ensure that as second-class citizens, people are not allowed to take the bus or take the train or get on a plane or get on a ferry or even cross the border to come back into Canada without some kind of fine because you didn't want to take the jibby jab. Yes, so much evil under this man's hat, if he wore a hat in this picture. So the permanent mission of Canada to the United Nations is pleased to welcome the new ambassador and permanent representative of Canada, the Honorable David Lametti. We look forward to working with you. So as a reminder, who was David Lametti? Well, David Lametti, oops, didn't get that in the proper order. There you go. Member David Lametti admitted in his POEC statement that the decision to invoke the Emergencies Act was political. Lametti claims his words were being misinterpreted. This transcript is more than clear, and our former Justice Minister did misinterpret the CSIS Act to invoke the EA on the Freedom Convoy protesters in Ottawa. We knew it. We read it. It was obvious. It was an obvious thing that they were completely embarrassed. Let's do a quick recap. Remember that protesters were gaining such popular support that they managed to raise $10 million in a couple of days in a GoFundMe page. Well, that didn't sit well with the Liberal government because that was a threat to their authority. So they decided to have that money confiscated. So then within 2 days, the Freedom Convoy raised another $10 million in 2 days of support funding, and which this Liberal government can't even raise $10 million in 1 year, let alone 2 hours. So they were freaking out. They were saying, oh my God, we got to nip this in the bud. We can't have people more popular, more important than the Liberal government. So in comes David Lametti. Let's listen to his words.
Your witness statement, and we can pull it up if we need to, but I don't think I'm misstating it here. You noted that the decision as to whether there was a national emergency was a political one. Do you agree with that?
Well, it was a political application of the various textual rules based on facts that we had.
Okay.
So It's made by, what I mean there is it's made by political actors. It's made by the Governor and Council.
Okay, and do you agree, though, that though it's a political decision, your role, one of your roles, was to assess the legality or the constitutionality of both the decision to invoke and the orders that...
Could I see that text, please? Because I think you're reading something in that...
Sure. Says Minister Lametti further explained that the determination as to the existence of a national emergency was a political one. It was formed on the basis of factual inputs from implicated government departments, including PCO, and legal opinions provided by the DOJ.
Yeah, I mean there, and the context now makes it clear that it's made by political actors, so the Governor and Council. It's not made, for example, by CSIS. And I've clearly stated in that what the inputs were, and I think it makes it clear. So when I say a political one, I mean it's a decision made by political actors, but it's not a political decision in the sense that I think you were understanding it.
Okay.
What a slimy guy, eh? I mean, the fact that he's a lawyer and a politician, that's like a double whammy for going to hell. Well, let's have some more on David Lametti, because you can never have enough Lametti in one day. Lametti resigned in disgrace today after the Emergencies Act was deemed unconstitutional by federal court, and with good reason, right? This was back when it was taken to court and it said, this was done illegally, and the courts ruled, yeah, you invoked it illegally, and not even with enough time to read what the decision was, because there was no possible way, unless you got an AI to read it and give you a synopsis, there was no bloody way you could read it in that amount of time, even if you were a sped reader. There was no way, but within 15 minutes or something, they said, oh yeah, we're gonna fight this in court. And of course, we're still waiting for some kind of reasonable decision on this, because the courts have come back and said that it was unreasonable for them to do it. And the government has come back and said, well, we don't agree with the unreasonableness of your decision, which is something that liberals always do. Well, I would say, if you talk to them, well, you ask them a question, they go, well, I think the question should be, because they'll change the question on you. And then you'll say, well, this happened, right? So we have to say about that. He goes, well, what I would say, and then they go to change the entire narrative. It's the same thing they're doing with having illegally invoked the Emergencies Act, which the courts only ruled as being unreasonable, even though that destroyed a lot of people's lives. And people that are still trying to get justice today, and you still have political prisoners being held today because of these illegal decisions, purposeful misinterpretation of the law. Let's listen to some more David Lametti.
Likewise, what Minister Beattie says is, likewise, it has been said that probably the most contentious clause in this bill is the one that deals with public order emergencies. This is a type of situation which gave rise to the use of the War Measures Act in 1970. This clause takes its definition of threat from the Canadian Security and Intelligence Services Act. This fact alone should make us very cautious because of the difficulties already encountered with CSIS in determining what is subversion and what is legitimate dissent. That was one view of the legislation. He goes on to say, I would remind members of this House that the definition of threats to the security of Canada received exhaustive scrutiny by Parliament in 1983 during deliberations on the CSIS Act. The language in this definition has therefore already received Parliament's blessing. So I pause here to note that what Minister Beattie is saying is, we are specifically incorporating the definition that's found in the CSIS Act because this is a definition that Parliament has already blessed. Is that fair?
Well, the point that I was going to make, Commissioner Rouleau, was in the very next paragraph, which was the CSIS definition is embedded in the Emergencies Act, and it must be read in conjunction. And that changes the scope, and the decision maker has changed, and that's all really I'm comfortable saying.
And sorry, Justice Rouleau or Commissioner Rouleau, Minister Lametti has referred to a following passage in the highlighted portion, and if I could, I just want to go to the next passage so I can ask him a couple of questions about it, because he's now commented on that.
Sure, go ahead. Let's
All
see
right,
where
so
it goes.
Thank you. So Minister Lametti, you referred to the fact that must be read in conjunction with the definition of national emergency. So when you move to the next page, to page 6, what the entire paragraph says is, I would also remind the House that the definition at the head of each of the 4 major parts of this bill including the definition of threats to the security of Canada, do not stand alone. They must be read in conjunction with the definition of a national emergency in the preamble of the bill and in conjunction with other restricting provisions. In other words, before the government can declare a public order emergency under Part 2, the emergency situation must correspond to the definition of a national emergency as stated in the preamble. They go on to say, I am told that this double test, as it is called, will be used by the courts to assess the government's compliance with the deliberate constraints and safeguards that have been built into the definitions of this bill. So what I'm saying, Minister Beattie is saying here is that you have to, one, meet the threats to the security of Canada, that's the first part, but also meet the definition of a national emergency under the preamble. That's what he's referring to as this double test.
Yeah, that's certainly your point of view.
All right, and is it fair to say that they're not saying here that the interpretation of threats to the security of Canada changes because you're looking at it through the lens of a national emergency? They're talking about this two-part test, a double test.
Again, Mr. Commissioner, my friend's question is calling upon the witness to interpret what we see in the Hansard. The Hansard is what it is, and beyond that, we're getting into legal argument on the interpretation of the legislation.
For the absurdity, the insanity, we can't ask the Justice Minister to interpret his own decision, can we? That would be ridiculous, right? We expect the Justice Minister to make a decision, but we don't expect the Justice Minister to actually explain his decision to you. You know, that's the entire Liberal attitude. We will tell you what to think. We will tell you what to do. And in fact, if you don't believe us, then you're deplorable. That's right. Yes, that's right. Minister of Finance, Philippe François Champagne, you were heard in French. And of course you were asked, and now it's all over the interwebs. As you referred to anyone who disagrees with the budget as being deplorable. So, as we can see, David Lametti here has his own interpretation, right? Which, of course, was ruled unreasonable. The decision he made was wrong. That's why he quit. Fell on his sword, and he's been hired in the background. I think he's been hired by Carney doing some stuff in the background. You got to ask yourself, so why did they give him this particular little post? I wondered that too. And I came across this. Lametti on CBC's The House Today. We need all the evidence to come in, he says. David Lametti didn't wait for all the evidence to come in when he enacted the Emergencies Act, later found to be unconstitutional, or unreasonably constitutional. Remember that when he hid behind a flimsy solicitor-client relationship excuse not to divulge his reasons at the POEC, which is the committee that we were just listening to before, sad given Canadian taxpayers are the real client. That's right, we paid him to abuse us. Failing upwards is what all of Trudeau's incompetent ministers do. So well, Canada's swapping out one embarrassing UN ambassador for another. So what has been the number one concern by the Liberals in order to distract everybody, in order to cause chaos on the streets? Who has been their number one favorite little enfant terrible that they have been paying attention to? Why, it would be the same people he's going over to probably help out. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Potential for such a decision might be there down the road, but this is certainly what we've done in other cases where a genocide has been recognized. There is an international body of authority that rules in that manner, and then Canada then moves to recognize it.
And that is the only arbiter that Canada will recognize in this space.
This is the position that Canada has taken for a number of years, and we think it's the right position. We need all the evidence to come in. We need for all the evidence to be assessed.
How much more evidence do we need that the Liberals are in cahoots with Islamic terrorists? I mean, it started with Aran, or whatever his name was, that Trudeau gave him $10 million after, obviously, it was proven that he was acting as a terrorist, even though he was a teenager at the time. And he killed an American medic in Afghanistan. And for his cause against Western civilization, Trudeau gave him $10 million. And of course, he went down south and invested in a strip mall in Florida. And it's only gotten worse since then, the amount of people that they have allowed. And we see them parading in our streets, parading their hate flag. And now some of the cities in Canada allowed the Palestinians to raise their hate flag up. And what did they do? As soon as they raised it, they started screaming, no, no, what, no, fear, attack fear, from the river to the sea. Yes, it was anti-Semitism, and let's kill all the Jews right off the bat. As soon as they raised the flag, of course, people were horrified. Oh my God, what have you done? So now some of the cities are saying, no, I think maybe we should pass a law not to allow foreign flags up on our poles. But you idiots, there was already regulations out there on how to deal with your flag poles. But you decided not to follow it, did you? Decided not to follow it at all. So now you have to make up new rules. That's always what the far left does, right? They just, oh, we'll just do what we want. We'll make up our own rules, and then they don't follow the rules. And then they're told, oh my God, you didn't follow the rules. Oh my God, I guess we need to change the rules. And then they change the rules for the worse, and things get worse again. It goes, oh my God, we need to fix what we've screwed up. And here we are. Now, of course, David Lametti, if he's been in support and been in the Liberal Party all this time, we can probably tell that his attitude towards Israel is not one of, let's say, objectiveness, and neither is it for the entire Liberal Party. We've seen it in their policy. They left out uh, protecting Christians on purpose in their bills. And of course, who's the number one persecutors of Christians on the planet? Islam. Yeah, that's right. Oh, that meant, of course, communists, like communist liberal government that we have. That's enough for David Lametti. Let's move on to the next story. We've still got about 4 more minutes before the House sits. Oh, that's yesterday's picture of the strange object that is in our solar system. Ah, yes. So David Creighton, he's got a little short here. I think we probably have enough time to listen to it. And this is really the direction that is going to keep going in regards to what happened with the ostriches. I mentioned this briefly yesterday about justice for ostriches, which is what they're setting up to help farmers. Let's listen to Katie.
The big news today, we've been talking about this for a little while. A voice for farmers. This will be the association that you will take forth so that this doesn't happen to other farms and other farmers. So what do you see as the primary mission or objectives of this association?
Yeah, making sure that every farm out there will have a chance to have some support and never be left alone in limbo or feeling bullied by an agency that has had no accountability and no oversight for decades. Remembering that this agency is an agency that has performs its own internal investigations, performs its own audits. They are only accountable to themselves. So making sure that every farmer out there has the ability to reach out to a support network within that association, whether it be a team of some lawyers, a couple vets, people that are all willing to come and bring their professional backgrounds into one area that we can support our farmers, support our agricultural sector, and give everybody hope for a strong, independent, healthy future in Canada for our animals, for our dedicated farmers, and even all of our farmers with orchards and our food. I mean, this isn't just about our living animals, but this is about our other sustainable food. It's about I think this is going to be it's a work in progress, but our heads are back together somewhat. We have very rough days, as I was saying. The 4 walls of the house still seem the safest. Walking down our laneway to see those empty pens is still we're not ready to stay down there yet. We've been there, but that's very hard. But that is giving us the strength to push forward, to fight for the rest of Canada so that we have some protection. So it's going to be we're working on it and just looking forward to establishing something that gives everybody a level of protection.
This entire thing is not done. It's not done by far. Of course, the threat is. that the CFIA will expand their powers, and not just limit it to farms. We've seen it now. They're going after sanctuaries. They're going after petting zoos. They're going after anything and everything that has an animal. The next ones will be your own household pets and the pets you hold at home. And then after that, it's going to be your own food that you're growing in your yard. Like I said yesterday, they'll just decide arbitrarily that an entire region has got some weird plant virus and that all the gardens in the area now have to be destroyed. You don't believe me? Look at some of the communist countries. They're actually doing it there. They're doing it to your farm animals. Now, of course, that's why people are pushing back. It's absolutely insane that they've forgotten the basic tenets of biology. It's absolutely crazy that for some reason they believe that nobody or nothing on this planet is able to achieve its own biological immunity to a threat. Now, breaking. Internal CFIA emails show flock eligibility for genetic exemption undercuts mandatory cull narrative. Of course it did. Of course they lied about culling these birds. Of course they did. I'm keeping an eye down here as when the house starts. So let's read this. There it is in writing. The CFIA acknowledged that the universal ostrich farm flock qualified for an exemption from depopulation because they possessed a rare and valuable genetics. That's straight from the CFIA's own case officer in an official email outlining the criteria for sparing the birds. Yet after confirming the flock met the exemption criteria, the CFIA reversed course, told the public the birds must be destroyed, and told the courts the same. This proves that many of us have been saying from the very beginning. The law allowed an exemption. The science supported alternatives for culling. CFIA chose the most extreme option anyway. To those claiming that other farms were at risk, the CFIA's own exemption pathway disproves that narrative. They had tools other than culling. They simply chose not to use them. And we must now ask the uncomfortable questions. Who benefits when natural immunity, long-lived antibodies, and non-pharmaceutical research are eliminated from the conversation? Not farmers, not public health, certainly not the ostriches. There is only one industry whose business model depends on assisting that. Herd immunity doesn't exist, that natural antibodies don't count, and that only patented solutions matter. We all know who that is, and that is Big Pharma. And here we have that. I'm just going to make sure I have that bookmark for myself. Absolutely insane. And we can see it, and it's all part of the World Health Authority that is in cahoots with Big Pharma, that is pushing these regulations, that is destroying farm animals and people's lives only for Big Pharma. And is he still talking there? Is he responding? Hard to say. Don't know if they're actually into it. We could be. Let's bring it up. Let's bring it up and see what's happening. Well, it shows question period has started. Well, that sounds like a statement. That doesn't sound like his normal boisterous, you gotta listen to me and we'll tell you what to do, and you conservatives over there, you voted against this, and I'm gonna give your kids a free lunch because that'll make up for everything, which is apparently his response for everything. Oh God, I'm sure we're gonna hear about it again today in question period. How the conservatives voted against giving kids free lunches that are not free, obviously, because somebody has to bloody pay for it. Oh, that's right. All the money goes through a central agency, and we got all those people paid, and then they disperse the money down to these other people. Apparently that's how it works. So, meanwhile, while people are starving in Canada and we've seen how much debt we have, Canada gives foreign farmers $392 million. That's right. That's right. Meanwhile, while CFIA is culling herds and destroying people's livelihoods, Canada is just like throwing money into the international toilet, helping other farmers in other countries. Because if there's one thing we learned about the Liberals is that they do not like Canadians. In fact, any Canadian who who just questions anything that they do is deplorable and probably needs to be vaccinated to be put out of the way. Let's just listen to this.
The Environment Minister announced $392 million to an international effort to help some small farmers, for example, cope and adapt to climate change. This is part of a larger global fund that Canada has already committed to help developing countries deal with and cope with climate change.
This entire climate change scam is a scam. There's no receipts. Some pure money laundering. We're gonna throw all the money over there, and we're not gonna get any any reports on what the money was spent on and what were the results. Because, like I've said before, what the hell causes the weather on Mars? Ask yourself that. What causes the weather on Mars? Does Mars have a climate crisis of its own? Oh, that's right. It's just a little further away from the sun, right? And Venus, of course, has its full climate-borne crisis, right? Because it's closer to the sun, right? So it's constantly in a greenhouse effect. Clowns, absolute clowns. The only thing that controls the temperature on this planet is that massive ball of plasma that our tiny little planet orbits. And it looks like they are getting ready to go. No, still statement by members. Okay, well, that's the way it goes. And oh yes, of course. While they're still talking their statements in the lower house, now the Liberals insist that their strategy on trade is not to talk to Donald Trump. Told you. We told you so. When you were going to vote this guy into office, he was not going to get anything done, except possibly enrich himself. And the speaker is standing, and people are slowly filing into the office. Oh, it looks like we're starting.
That's almost a whole month, Mr. Speaker, away from Canadians. And what do we have to show for it? No softwood lumber deal. Photo ops, fancy meetings, and hollow letters of intent. Every time it's wheels up, Canadians are left with higher costs and no results. Mr. Speaker, this is the House of Commons, where leaders should be accountable. Canadians deserve a Prime Minister that delivers, not just simply racks up.
That simply racks up what?
Nothing but photo ops
around the planet, which is the equivalent of what they've done, I think. Yeah, so they're talking about that yesterday. He's flown so much is the equivalent of flying 4 times around the planet. But of course, you know, he's all about the climate. And where's he off this weekend? He's flying off to the UAE. But everywhere he goes, he comes back with higher tariffs. So I predict higher tariffs. Well, I don't think we have any tariffs from the UAE, but we will by the time Carney gets back. Well, it looks like they are not ready. Not ready at all. We didn't get to this yesterday. Melissa Landsman put out this video. If you've ever seen the 1980s movie Brazil, you know it's a must-watch. It shows the government departments run amok. Paperwork isn't a byproduct. Paperwork is the product. It was a brilliant film. I loved it when it came out. Pretty sure I have my own copy. And there's quite the story behind this film when they actually made it. It almost drove the director insane. I'm pretty sure he needed a couple of years to emotionally recover. It was that bad. Let's see, the production and the release of the movie Brazil did not drive its director Terry Gilliam mad, but it did involve a famously difficult and stressful battle with Universal Pictures over the film's final cut. The conflict is one of the most notorious in film history. Gilliam struggled with the studio, specifically with the then Universal executive Sid Sheinberg, who wanted a shorter, happier version of the film for the American market, which he felt should be called Love Conquers All. Gilliam, meanwhile, fought to preserve the original longer and more dystopian version, which is pretty telling, right? Because here we have the Liberals insisting that we're not living in a dystopia while turning us into a dystopia. Let's listen to the question.
Canadians are paying the price for this Prime Minister.
Grocery and housing costs have ballooned. But this Prime Minister is making things even worse with his budget, which doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit. This is the highest deficit in Canadian history outside of the COVID pandemic. The deficit is $16 billion higher than what he promised during the election. And for what? To finance a bureaucracy that grew by 80% since the Liberals took office 10 years ago. Now, the government House leader says that this will have minimal impact on democracy. Why do Canadians have to pay for all this? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, the Leader of the Opposition did not read the budget. Had he read the budget, he would see that currently we are bringing down operating costs, government operating costs. If he hasn't read the budget, that would explain why he voted against it. Or maybe he's just operating in bad faith. He's against jobs we're trying to create from coast to coast to coast. We're trying to invest in defense. He's against it. He's against us investing more in health. He's against investments all throughout the country in mining projects, electricity projects, energy projects. So basically, what it comes down to is that he's against growth, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister is once again playing his games. He is going on yet another trip. We want some results for his 20 international trips. He has covered 150,000 kilometers in his travels. That's the equivalent of circling the globe 4 times. What have all these meetings led to? American tariffs have increased. Indian tariffs have increased on our peas. China has increased tariffs on our farmers and fish harvesters. It would be better for our economy if the Prime Minister were to hide under a rock rather than to continue his meetings. Can the Minister tell us one tariff the Prime Minister has managed to have reduced? Mr. Speaker, the only person hiding under a rock right now is the Leader of the Opposition when he has to face his caucus. So that's one thing. Next, the Leader of the Opposition, what he wants is for the Canadian economy to remain dependent on the American economy. I think that's his strategy. He might not be saying that out loud to Canadians, but here on this side of the House, our strategy is to diversify our markets. We are trying to create jobs. So that's why the Prime Minister is traveling to countries like Europe, Asia, the UAE, the Gulf states, and it's all leading to good news.
Canadians are paying the price for this Prime Minister through record-high grocery and housing cost inflation, but he wants them to pay even more. He's doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit, the biggest deficit in Canadian history outside of COVID, $16 billion bigger than he promised, shattering his other promise to reduce the debt-to-GDP ratio, and the bureaucracy is taking the lion's share, 80% more costly when these Liberals took office. The Liberal House leader said just yesterday there will only be minimal reductions in the bureaucracy. Why must starving Canadians pay to feed this bureaucracy rather than feeding their families?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, you know what helps families is good-paying jobs. And that's why we have had such a tremendous response to this budget, including from the building trades unions, Mr. Speaker, who said that they're grateful to all parliamentarians who supported the federal budget and acted in the best interests of Canadians. So I guess that doesn't include the Conservatives who voted against those very Canadians they say they stand up for.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister is beginning yet another costly photo op tour. It's time to start asking for the results of the more than 20 international trips, the 150,000 kilometers, enough to circle the globe 4 times. It would be great if he were actually getting something done. But he met with the Americans. They doubled tariffs on our products. He met with the Chinese. They hit us with new tariffs on our farmers and fish harvesters. He met with the Indians. They've hit us with new tariffs on Canadian peas. The British are still blocking our beef. Can the Prime Minister give us even one example of a tariff that his international meetings have succeeded in reducing?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
The opposition has been in this House for more than 20 years with not much to show. Here's what we've accomplished in the last few months in trade. We've signed new trade deals with Ecuador, with Indonesia. We advanced trade discussions with ASEAN, Philippines, Thailand, wrapping up.
Again, it was a bit too noisy. Could the Honourable Minister continue, please?
We've signed new trade deals with Ecuador, Indonesia. We're advancing trade negotiations with ASEAN, Philippines, Thailand, wrapping up a FIFA with the UAE. We have legislation before this House to expand our trade ties with the UK. Together, these countries represent 750 million potential consumers. While the Prime Minister is opening doors for workers and businesses, the other side is focused on shutting them shut. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
All that adds up to not a single tariff reduced in the Prime Minister's 8 months of traveling the globe. And now let's move on to his costly agenda on pipelines. In June of 2014, the Conservative government approved a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific. November 29, 2016, this Liberal government cancelled that pipeline, ordering the Energy Board to dismiss it. March 27, 2021, this current Liberal Prime Minister said that he supported cancelling the pipeline. Will the Prime Minister admit that he was wrong, that his Liberal government was wrong, and that Conservatives were right? We need a pipe to the Pacific now.
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Premier have publicly stated they're having productive discussions on advancing an MOU between Canada and Alberta. They have each stated those discussions are premised on building a pathways decarbonization project, strengthening the industrial carbon price, and receiving support from affected First Nations and jurisdictions. When the Prime Minister and the Premier are ready to make an announcement, they will to all Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, we're hoping the Prime Minister will announce that he was wrong and that the Liberal government was wrong to kill the Northern Gateway pipeline that had been approved back in 2014. 9 years have since been lost after the Liberal government blocked it. However, they also put in a ban on shipping Canadian energy off the northwest coast of BC. So if there's a pipeline, while the Liberal ban remains in place, it would have to be a pipeline to nowhere. So will the Prime Minister admit that the Liberal government was wrong to ban Canadian energy shipping and scrap the ban so that we can pipe our product over to Asia?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, in those long, barren Harper years where this member was a minister, the only pipeline that got built was the pipeline full of hot air that led to nothing, not a single energy exporting tidewater piece of energy infrastructure was ever constructed under a Conservative government. We've built one. You just heard the minister talking about a process on another. Mr. Speaker, you want to vote for energy security, you want to vote for energy exports, you want to vote for major projects and opportunity in this country, you should cast a Liberal vote.
The fucking top, aren't you there, McKinnon?
The Honourable Member for. I thought that our honourable colleagues wanted to finish on time today. I don't know whether that will be possible. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Heritage yesterday announced $500 million per year for agriculture in the budget, but he could have announced $1.5 billion.
L'honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. From the top, please. In the budget, the Minister of Heritage announced $500 million a year. Mr. Speaker, can you get them under control? He could have announced $1.5 billion for taxpayers had he not cancelled the tax on web giants. Multinationals would have paid that. They don't pay taxes in Canada, and now Canadians and Quebecers are paying that, and they're losing $500 million. Am I supposed to congratulate him on that? The Honourable Minister of Identity and Canadian Culture. Mr. Speaker, I would like to correct the Bloc Québécois leader's facts. We did not announce $500 million for arts and culture. In fact, we invested $770 million for arts and culture, which is the most ever in Canadian history, but the Bloc Québécois voted against that. There's $6 million for the Arts Council per year. The Bloc voted against that. $150 million for Telefilm Canada. The Bloc Québécois voted against it. $26 million for the National Film Board. That's the biggest investment in the National Film Board in Canadian history. The Bloc Québécois voted against that. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Minister lost $1.5 billion that could have gone to arts and culture. Now, here's a question for my colleague about the lack of funding for private radio and television. The minister said that he's giving $150 million to Radio-Canada and CBC. I was a CBC commentator, a Radio-Canada commentator in the past, and I have the utmost respect for everyone who works at CBC Radio-Canada, but am I supposed to congratulate him on totally scrapping any support for private TV and radio? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois leader was president and CEO of ADISC. In this budget, there's there's significant funding over the next 4 years, and there's $38 million a year for local media in this budget. The Bloc Québécois voted against that. Millions of dollars are going to Québécois through this budget. The Bloc Québécois voted against that. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois voting against all that, well, it's outrageous. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Heritage was, in the past, president of Équiterre. The minister doesn't seem to understand how major this crisis is, because this is about independence and the French language. $150 million to Radio-Canada is not enough. Private TV and radio stations are essential. These outlets feel that the government does not care about them and has totally abandoned them. Is the government purposely trying to put an end to private media? And should Quebecers congratulate the government for this? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I encourage the Bloc Québécois leader to read the Radio-Canada annual report and strategic plans. It was just published, and it's written clearly that Radio-Canada CBC will invest in creating new local stations throughout Canada, including in Quebec. We're investing $150 million in CBC Radio-Canada. The Bloc Québécois voted against that. It's the biggest ever investment in Quebec's culture. The Bloc Québécois' stance on this is outrageous. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent, Aquiau-Enrac. Mr. Speaker, the new Prime Minister's budget, this Liberal budget, is a credit card budget. The deficit is $80 billion. That's $16 billion more than he promised during the election. Mr. Speaker, we don't need an Oxford degree, a doctorate, to know that a deficit is a bill that we will pass on to our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. What's more, the rating agency Fitch has issued a warning. They say federal finances are at a high risk of further deterioration. When will this government wake up and take real positive action to responsibly handle the situation? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Nature. Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised to hear my colleague rail against our budget. Our budget, I'd like to address it from my perspective as a woman. Across the way, when they talk about women, they talk about women as victims. They're victims in their personal lives, victims of violence. They also refer to women as victims who lack access to certain things. Well, in my view, this budget will help women regain their buying power. They'll be able to buy groceries, for instance. They will have help getting good jobs through our economic diversification. We are supporting women in all kinds of ways through this budget. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent, Aquiau-Enrac. Mr. Speaker, get this. This Prime Minister's spending is even more excessive than Justin Trudeau's. We really need to fix this issue. Somebody said on March 11th, 2015, balancing the budget is a way to ensure our state's credibility and financial stability. Do you know who said that in 2015? The current parliamentary secretary for finance, Mr. Speaker, because he balanced budgets in Quebec. And as a Quebecer, I'm very happy that he did that. But currently, I'm wondering, why didn't he advise the Prime Minister that he should balance our books?
L'honorable secrétaire d'État
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Monsieur le Président, le budget.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 meets the moment. We're investing to help build strong families and communities throughout Canada. These investments will create jobs and careers for young people and will also protect support measures to help families grow and be stronger. We have a plan to build, strengthen, and enhance Canada, and it's really disgraceful that the members across the way voted against our budget.
Speaker, this Prime Minister's costly credit card budget piles today's reckless spending onto tomorrow's taxpayers. Credit card agency Fitch says that the Liberals repeatedly blow past their own fiscal anchors, putting our credit rating at risk. Even the Parliamentary Budget Officer is sounding the alarm on this financial mess. How many more warnings will it take for this Prime Minister to rein in his out-of-control spending?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, trusting advice from the Conservative leader on this budget is like trusting a weatherman's forecast who lives inside a snow globe. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we are standing with Canada. People from Carleton knew it, Progressive Conservatives leaders knew it, and Canadians knew it. It's time for the Conservatives to get real about this budget, support us building the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Gateway.
Mr. Speaker, the fact is, Canadians are putting nearly 50% more of their expenses on credit cards than they did in 2015. Monthly food bank visits have smashed all-time records with 2 million Canadians a month visiting the food bank. Families that used to once donate to the food bank are now standing in line waiting for help. This Liberal government has made everything more expensive. When will this Prime Minister stop his out-of-control spending, which makes everything more unaffordable for Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, last election, NDP supporters, Green supporters, and so many Progressive Conservatives stood with us to form a new party, to form a bold vision for this country. Mr. Speaker, we went from coast to coast to coast. We listened to Canadians. We came forth with a transformational budget that will build our economy in the strongest economy in the G7. It's time for the members opposite to stop the rhetoric, stop the slogans, stand with us, build a strong economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's costly credit card budget loads today's reckless spending onto tomorrow's taxpayers. After 10 years of these tired Liberals, Canadians are putting nearly 50% more of their expenses on their credit cards since 2015. The Parliamentary Fiscal Watchdog is ringing the alarm bell saying, with Budget 2025, the government abandoned the previous fiscal anchor to reduce the federal debt-to-GDP ratio over the medium term. No wonder the costly Prime Minister wants to fire him. How many more fiscal watchdog reports is it going to take, Mr. Speaker, for this Prime Minister to rein in his costly credit card spending?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, let me talk about the people in my riding, like seniors who are benefiting from this budget. When I talk to them, I hear about dental care and them saving $800 a year. I hear about our New Horizons program for seniors, supporting projects that affect seniors' quality of life. I hear about $5 billion going to healthcare and hospital infrastructure in this budget. And most importantly, I hear about a Health Heroes tax credit benefiting PSWs who are the heart and soul of care in our communities. But don't take my word for it, Mr. Speaker. SEIU Healthcare President Tyler Downey says we're putting more money directly into the pockets of PSWs will support retention and strengthen care.
The Honourable Member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, in one costly budget, these high-spending liberals have managed to max out our great-grandchildren's credit cards. The Parliamentary Fiscal Watchdog isn't the only one ringing alarm bells, Mr. Speaker. Fitch Credit Ratings, the agency that gives the government its credit score, says that since the Liberal government frequently blows through its fiscal anchors, federal finances run a high risk of further deterioration. Fitch is concerned. The Parliamentary Fiscal Watchdog is sounding the alarm. How many more fiscal watchdog reports is it going to take for this Prime Minister to rein in his costly credit card spending?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me keep going. Let me talk about the youth in Toronto St. Paul's, because this side of the House knows that our economic future depends on them. That's why we're saying whatever your ambition is to Canada's youth, whether it's to shape the future of AI, whether it's to join the Climate Corps, whether it's to make a great Canadian film, whether it's to study higher education or work in the skilled trades, this budget is helping young Canadians from their first summer job all the way through that career-starting, lifelong career that they're going to have. Don't take my word for it. Let's talk about the YMCA, who says that paid skilled training in this budget is going to strengthen resilience in our...
So this is the second time now in Parliament in question period in the last 2 days that they have mentioned the Climate Corps. This is a scary proposition, folks. The Climate Corps is a youth group that will be funded by the federal government to push their climate change agenda, to go after the climate denialists. That's right. This is your money agenda being funded on the Liberals' own version of their cultural Marxist Nazi youth group. Of course, they will call them the Climate Corps, but it's a government-funded ideological group. This is very disturbing, absolutely disturbing. We should not be having this in Canada. We're turning into a fascist state.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is treating this budget like a credit card with no limits. In fact, the Parliamentary Budget Officer has confirmed that the government has abandoned its fiscal anchor. In my riding in Saguenay, there is a factory that's closing. Multiple families are losing their livelihood. They don't know how they will pay bills. Meanwhile, our Prime Minister is spending recklessly. Why does the Prime Minister continue to endanger our public finances? The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We should be talking about Indigenous families living in the regions in Quebec. Families in my riding, for instance. They want this budget, a budget which enhances and protects programs for vulnerable people, especially vulnerable people in their communities. Meanwhile, the opposition voted against that, Mr. Speaker. Now, all this business about spending on a credit card, isn't it really just defending and protecting Canada? The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, loyalty is a virtue. I am loyal to Quebec and to Quebec's sovereignty. The Minister of Economic Development seems to be loyal to the Liberal Party of Quebec and to Pablo Rodriguez, whose loyalty to financing has been exposed today. But his loyalty to federal Liberals makes him say some bizarre things. Can he explain to us how a hypothetical possible Quebec currency would put us in Donald Trump's hands? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Listen, I'm happy that the member is speaking to the Parti Québécois' new idea for a Quebec currency, because Quebecers are very worried. They can't believe people are talking about losing our purchasing power, about a third referendum, about a Quebec currency at a time when the American president is threatening Canada's sovereignty. It's shocking that some are proposing weakening Quebec and handing the reins over to Pierre Saint-Paul Plamondon so he can make a currency. It makes no sense, Mr. Speaker.
No one has ever accused the Liberals of being self-aware. I mean, they have created a constitutional crisis of their own. They've screwed up the country so much that Western separatism has flourished, and that separatism in Quebec, although the polls show that it's not as anywhere near as strong as it was the last time they had a referendum, but it seems to be growing again. And this is caused by the current government, right? And all they can do is blame other people. Oh, stop trying to destroy Confederation. Well, then stop not listening to people. Of course, the Liberals will never listen to anybody. They'll just keep marching on and blame everyone else for the problems that they cause.
Chambly. We can hear the ghosts of Jean Chrétien and Jean Charest visiting us here at Parliament. It's clear that the stronger the country, the stronger its currency. So the member could, if she would like, do an internship with the member for Mirabel. But here's my question. According to her own logic, should Canada not give up its own currency and start using American currency? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, this is fictional politics, but fine, because it helps people in all party caucuses to understand what's going on within the Bloc Québécois caucus and the Parti Québécois caucus in Quebec. One thing is clear, we have 44 Quebec MPs. We will do our utmost to defend our economy. We will invest in jobs, and we will ensure that at the end of the day, Canada's sovereignty is even stronger, Mr. Speaker.
Every time the Prime Minister flies out of this country for another glittering photo op, things get worse for Canadians. He went to China and came back with more tariffs on Canadian canola. He went to the U.S., came back with double the tariffs on cars and triple the tariffs on steel and aluminum. And now the two sides aren't even talking. And then he went to the U.K. and he still couldn't land a basic deal for our pork and beef farmers. Why is it that every time the Prime Minister boards a plane, Canadians get sacked with a bigger bill?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party should ask the question in reverse. Why is it when the Leader of the Opposition flies out of this city to far-flung places across our vast and grand land, his polling results go down every single time that he lands at a great Canadian airport, Mr. Speaker? The Deputy Leader should demand more of her leader, should demand bigger results of her leader. The Deputy Leader needs to step up, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
A lecture from a government that cannot close a deal on canola. They cannot close a deal on softwood lumber, on autos, on steel, on aluminum, on basically every export that is the backbone of the Canadian economy. The Prime Minister sold Canadians hope and he didn't deliver. And then he used that broken trust as a reason to collect more stamps in his own passport. He's jet setting on another taxpayer-funded vacation to Dubai, where jobs in Windsor and Oshawa are going south. Is the Prime Minister obsessed with foreign travel because he likes spending other people's money, or is it that he just can't face Canadians at home?
The Honourable Secretary of State to the Minister of Finance.
Forget Canada has a AAA credit rating. Inflation has been within the Bank of Canada target range for over almost 2 years. Interest rates are down. Job numbers are exceeding expectations. And Budget 2025 makes generational investments that the head of the International Monetary Fund welcomes. These investments will pay dividends to Canadians over generations in the form of good-paying jobs, affordable homes, thriving and productive industries, resilient supply chains, infrastructure that connects our country and enables diverse trade. The only question is, why do the Conservatives not believe in Canada?
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope. In just 8.
So, what he just said there is a little weird. It's absolutely weird because they keep talking about this this AAA rating, which we know is going to go into the toilet. So let me bring back here to what he said.
In the form of good-paying jobs, affordable homes, thriving and productive industries, resilient supply chains, infrastructure investments will pay dividends are exceeding. Forget Canada has a AAA credit rating. Inflation has been within the Bank of Canada target range for over almost 2 years. Interest rates are down. Job numbers are exceeding expectations. And Budget 2025 makes generational investments that the head of the International Monetary Fund welcomes.
So I've taken you through the International Monetary Fund, and I've shown you how horrible the situation is for Canada. And what a lot of people have been conditioned now to forget is that just over a decade ago, the only time that people referred to the International Monetary Fund was in aspects of bailing out bankrupt nations. Right? That's the entire purpose for the entire International Monetary Fund, was in order to create this bank of money to keep trade and Western civilization rolling along by continuing to do trade with all these other nations that are not as economically viable as the stronger Western nations, so you create the IMF, and then the IMF ends up giving loans to these nations, right? And that's what they used to do, or they would just bail them out, and then you would be beholden to the IMF, having to give everything in your economy over to them, and then the IMF will decide what you get back as they pay down your debt for you. That's what people are forgetting about the IMF. So when these clowns here saying, "Oh, the IMF is all for us," well, yeah, they want full control, along with the bondsmen and the bankers, so that all the wealth that will come out of this nation will filter through those institutions first, and if there's any money left over, it'll trickle down back down to Canada, because at this point, the Liberals will have handed over our economic sovereignty to our debt holders. That's where Canada is heading.
Will pay dividends to Canadians over generations. The only question is, why do the Conservatives not believe in Canada?
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
In just 8 months, this Prime Minister has flown the friendly skies nearly 70 times on 28 different trips and burned through enough jet fuel to fly the equivalent of 4 times around the Earth. Wow. And what does he have to show for all of his gallivanting around in a private jet? Just expensive photo ops, empty announcements, and no real results for Canadian workers. Not only have these trips failed to get the deals he promised, but tariffs and costs for Canadians seem to go higher each time he takes off. Why doesn't the Prime Minister stop his flights of fancy and start making life more affordable for Canadians here at home?
The Honourable Minister for Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, instead of talking down the economy, why don't they join us and build this economy up? Look, let's see what we can agree on. Can we agree that we want to lower taxes for Canadians? This budget did it. They voted against it. Can we agree we want to support innovators, small business and entrepreneurs? This budget did it. They voted against it. But don't take my word for it. Just today, I was speaking with the Canadian manufacturers and exporters, and they represent 10,000 businesses. This budget makes meaningful steps to support manufacturers under pressure. Mr. Speaker, they should join us. Build Canada.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Well, Mr. Speaker, while fancy art dealers and high-flying people like the Prime Minister are living their best life, here on the ground a record number of Canadians are using the food bank and struggling to heat their homes. They don't get to leave their troubles behind by jumping on a private jet. These swanky trips have done nothing for the tens of thousands of steel, auto and softwood lumber workers who have lost their jobs, and the millions more who are living with uncertainty due to the Prime Minister's broken promises on tariffs. Why doesn't the Prime Minister spend less time on fancy travel and more time focusing on making life more affordable for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Unlike the members opposite, Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that we need to invest in ourselves, and that's exactly why they've supported this government and why they support this budget, Mr. Speaker. From building trades unions, to the YMCA, to Canada Food Banks, to a variety of different stakeholders that have advocated for the programs and the approach in this budget. People are happy, Mr. Speaker. They're happy with a government that has ambition on their behalf. And Mr. Speaker, we're not going to stop, because we are creating the jobs of today and tomorrow.
Member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, all this Prime Minister has achieved is higher air miles, higher altitudes, and higher tariffs. With 28 trips and enough kilometers traveled to circle the Earth 4 times, Canadians expect more than just photo ops on hollow letters of intent. When he traveled to China, Canadians got higher tariffs. When he traveled to India, Canadians got higher tariffs. When he traveled to Washington, Canadians got higher tariffs. Why are Canadian families paying the price with higher tariffs for this Prime Minister to jet around the globe for photo ops and deals for Brookfield?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Northern and Arctic Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This member is from Manitoba, and we need to recognize that Manitobans want to vote for this budget.
That's right. That's right.
They want the Port of Churchill. They want us to build and protect and empower the North. This is the first time that we're seeing the type of investments that we've seen in generations. So I encourage this member to get on board and vote for us to ensure that we have the National School Food Program to make it permanent. So thank you for the question.
And it's always important to remember that these are not investments, these are expenditures. These are spending that will be put on the credit card, just like they are denying.
Honourable member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, this week this House reiterated its confidence in our government and in Budget 2025. Indeed, Budget 2025 is an expression of confidence in Canada. In the face of uncertainty, Canadians are going to build the future we want for ourselves. That includes our new Buy Canadian policy, which is strengthening our economy by prioritizing Canadian-made steel, aluminum, and softwood lumber, supporting local jobs, protecting industries impacted by international tariffs, and reinforcing our commitment to stable supply chains. Can the Secretary of State speak to the broad support of this Buy Canadian?
Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
I want to thank the member for their question. The Buy Canadian policy outlined in Budget 2025 will leverage every public dollar to strengthen Canada's economy and create jobs. Don't take my word for it. Ask the members for Chicoutimi, Jonquière, and Lac-Saint-Jean. They all joined our government in announcing and applauding this policy last week, only to vote against it a few days later. Canadians notice, Mr. Speaker. While that side of the House is putting partisan politics above results, we're building the strongest economy in the G7.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is behaving like a real tourist. In his first 8 months as Prime Minister, he's made 28 trips, enough kilometres to circle the globe 4 times in his private jet. Yet there are no deals, no concrete results, just good intentions and photo ops at the taxpayers' expense. Mr. Speaker, why is it that every time the Prime Minister gets on a plane to meet with foreign leaders, Canadians have to pay even higher tariffs? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect for my colleague, choosing between APM that will visit our allies and trade partners to diversify our markets, and the Leader of the Opposition that spends his time on obscure podcasts to criticize our institution, it's an obvious and simple choice, and that's the choice the Canadians made. We're focusing on market diversification to reduce our dependency on the Americans and support our economy, increase productivity, and build the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you. The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, this changed absolutely nothing for the tens of thousands of steel workers, auto workers, and lumber workers who've lost their jobs because of this Liberal government's tariff failures. Mr. Speaker, Canadian businesses are asking for a deal with the United States to ensure the predictability of their revenues. Why is it that every time the Prime Minister stops in a warm country, tariffs go up and Canadians pay? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, we've seen better from that colleague. Well, as you know, my colleague should spend more time with people in the automotive sector and in the forestry sector, and more time with the people in the steel and aluminum sector, because what they're asking for us is to open up international markets and decrease our dependency on U.S. markets, like my Quebec colleague mentioned, because it is really important so we can export our aluminum and forestry products and steel to Europe and to Asia, and that's exactly what the Prime Minister is doing.
For Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Sometimes you're trying to choose between bills and feeding your kids. That's a direct quote from Thunder Bay mom Cassandra Shedden, who relies on formula to feed her infant child. She describes rummaging around her house, looking for things to sell just so she can put formula in her baby's bottle. Why won't the Prime Minister do something so that parents can afford to buy baby formula?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, Mr. Speaker, nobody should have to feel the fear that Cassandra feels. But I will note what Cassandra also said. She said she could hardly wait till the Canada Child Benefit arrived on the 20th of each month, because that helped her feed her baby as she lived on Ontario disability, Mr. Speaker. And that member voted against parent childcare. She voted against school food, Mr. Speaker. She voted against the very people she has the temerity to stand up and quote in this House.
All that. Of course, they always have to bring up their free bag lunch. Oh, yes, that's right. Mothers can't feed their children, their babies. But conservatives voted against giving just a handful of kids free lunch at school, which will solve all the ills in Canada.
Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Since 2017, inflation on baby formula is double what it is in the U.S. Double. We are overly reliant on imported infant formula, and we only have one plant in Canada, which means every single tax on transportation, every supply chain disruption, every single tariff threat hits Canadian families harder. This is due to a lack of any kind of action from any of these Liberals for the last 10 years. Will they finally make this a priority so that parents can afford to feed their babies formula?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Maybe the member didn't read the article where the Canada Research Chair, Ms. Leslie Frank, said that the Canada Child Benefit should be increased, which, by the way, it is every year, Mr. Speaker, because it's pegged to inflation, where the experts said that formula should be produced in Canada. In this budget, we have money for innovation in agriculture, Mr. Speaker. How does that member think that Canada will be able to do anything if she votes against Canadians' interests time and time again?
The Honourable Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
What's deeply wrong is the fact that parents are waiting every single day for those checks just so they can afford to put groceries on the table. What is deeply wrong is that mothers are begging strangers online for money just so they can afford to buy baby formula. What's deeply wrong is that parents are resorting to buying opened bottles and cases of formula, powdered formula, just so they can feed their kids. This is because of this government's lack of action. So will they actually do something other than just create more bureaucracy? We need action.
Here, here.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, members like that one with the fake outrage as their colleagues stand up and vote against the very mother.
The Honourable Minister.
Just the other day, the member from Bowmanville, Oshawa North, suggested that hungry children should go without because parents should be able to afford to feed their kids. Well, you know what, Mr. Speaker, I have a newsflash. Single mothers like I were in my day needed all the help we could get, and that's what we do for moms every single day in this House.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
This is from a minister who is completely out of touch with Canadians, who are struggling day in and day out to be able to afford the very basic necessities of life. Meanwhile, the members across the way heckle me while Canadians struggle and are going to the food bank in droves. That is because of this government's mismanagement, and they can do something about it. And one of the things that they can do about it is actually scrapping the fuel tax, which would bring down the cost of groceries. Why is this government hell-bent on keeping the fuel tax and making sure that Canadians cannot afford basic necessities?
The Honourable Minister.
The member opposite fails to acknowledge is that she voted against every measure that helps single mothers right now every single day, whether it's fees reduced by early learning and childcare, whether it's access to dental care for children that don't have dental care benefits, whether it's fighting against school food, Mr. Speaker. These conservatives stand up. They say they feel the pain of moms, especially single moms, but when push comes to shove, they vote against them time and again.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
So what she is saying is that through socialist programs, Canadians can be provided for. That Canadians shouldn't be able to make ends meet on
parliamentary about that word. The honourable member for Lethbridge, from the top.
Food prices in this country have risen by 40%, which is way higher than the 40% faster than the United States of America, which goes to prove that it has a whole lot to do with this government and its socialist policies. Now, Stats Canada shows that beef is up 17%, chicken is up 6%, apples is up 4%, and baby formula is up 6%. The most stolen item in a grocery store because parents are desperate due to this government's mismanagement. So, folks are suffering. I hosted a town hall last week. Their faces, their stories came forward. These are more than stats, folks. What will this government do about it?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's why I'm so proud to be a Liberal, because Liberals believe in helping each other. We believe that when a single mom is having a tough time, we should be there for her. We believe that when a family's down on their luck, we should have an employment insurance program that helps people out when they lose their job. We believe that when people can't access dental...
Oh, just sometimes you gotta fucking take a pause. Because we want to be there for them. They're using our money. They're using our money for us, right? You gotta remember that? When they act all high and mighty like this, oh, you people don't want to help them. Yeah, they're making accolades over using our own money after it's filtered out and made a bunch of money for them. Then it trickles a little bit back to Canadians and they go, well, look at all we're doing. And they're voting against that. These socialist morons. Oh, this is going to be a wonderful clip.
Sometimes up to 20 years and live in pain. We should do something about that as a country. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? That's what Canadians believe. It's why we're known for our universal health care system, Mr. Speaker, because we care about each other.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon University.
This Liberal government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians, driving up the cost of everything. Year after year, food costs have gone up, and the Liberals want you to pay more for their food packaging taxes. The Liberal tax on food costs Canadians an additional $5.6 billion a year. Wow. Driving up costs for fresh produce by over 34%. Why is this Prime Minister keeping the food packaging tax and making everything more expensive for struggling Canadians?
All the member did was stand up. And it's not. I mean, come on. The Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Mr. Speaker, for 10 long years, I've been telling the people of Saskatchewan that as a result of what the mismanagement under Stephen Harper, Mr. Speaker, this government spent the last 10 years cleaning up Harper's mess, Mr. Speaker, so we can go on a bold new journey, Mr. Speaker. $51 billion set aside to help Canada build their communities. That's an impressive amount of money, Mr. Speaker. The Saskatchewan MP should wake up, vote for the budget, and back up Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary McKnight.
Okay, I'm sorry for the pause, but what is going on in the background here? Just let me look at this woman right here. Look at her.
Aside to help Canada build their communities. That's an impressive amount of money, Mr. Speaker. The Saskatchewan MP should wake up, vote for the budget, and back up Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is the most expensive in the Canadian history. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians, driving up the cost of everything. The Prime Minister told Canadians to judge him by the prices they see at the grocery stores. But now, the industrial carbon tax has caused food prices in Canada to rise nearly 40% faster than in the US. Why is the Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2025, we are making generational investments to build Canada strong.
Again, we've cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. This is making sure we put more money back into their pockets, and we're also supporting our young people. We've created new pathways to support them. This is 175,000 jobs for young people through the Canada Summer Jobs, the Student Work Placement Program. We are empowering youth to gain the skills that they need. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to build Canada strong and support our youth in this country.
Honourable member for Richmond East Steveston.
Mr. Speaker, last spring, my hometown of Richmond voted for a government that would develop clean, reliable electricity to power our economy. In British Columbia, the North Coast Transmission Line has just been referred to the Major Projects Office. It will twin key transmission corridors, reinforce BC's clean grid in the Northwest, and support industry while connecting communities. Can the Minister explain how this project will support BC jobs and lower emissions?
So this is the project I was telling you about earlier that they need extra power for in order to create a green industry that Prime Minister Carney is invested in. This is the only reason that this is going forward. Of course, they won't mention that in their response.
While helping Canada realize its potential as a critical mineral producer and clean energy superpower.
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the North Coast Transmission Line is exactly the kind of enabling infrastructure Canada needs to get to net zero, to become a clean energy superpower, and to diversify our exports. Once in operation, it is suspected to support thousands of direct jobs and help avoid up to 3 million tons of carbon emissions every year. By unlocking our vast natural resources and powering new industries with low carbon electricity, we're giving workers and communities what they want, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday Abbotsford residents woke to news of yet another shooting linked to extortion in our communities. Far too many families and businesses across the region have been affected. Under Liberal soft on crime policies, extortion has risen over 500% in BC alone. And in my community, 100 shootings linked to extortion. Why do the Liberals block our request for an emergency debate? And when will this Prime Minister finally get serious about extortion?
Hear, hear. The Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, the Liberals didn't block any kind of debate. Mr. Speaker, you're well aware you held that ruling yesterday yourself. And the second thing, the best thing to stop extortions is deterrence, Mr. Speaker. If the criminals knew that they would be caught, they would not be involved in such crimes, Mr. Speaker. And one way to deter criminals is to make sure that we give police the tools that they need to be able to catch them. We have brought lawful access measures, Mr. Speaker, in C2 in this House, and guess who's blocking them? The Conservatives are, Mr. Speaker. They will not allow the police to have the tools they need to catch these criminals.
The Honourable Member for Canmore.
Another massive lie by the Liberals, because they are the ones who changed the law through legislation that has created the problem we have today. And in reaction, the Conservatives actually brought forward a bill. It was one of the first things they did when the session sat in September. And of course, the Liberals said, no, we can't have that bill. We have our own bill. And then they created their own bill, raiding some of the very ideas from the Conservatives, but always with not making it completely workable and ensuring that there was also a little authoritarian, totalitarian bent in there, allowing them to get away with their own crimes and really not doing anything about the crime and chaos that's happening on our streets, because this is all part of their managed decline in order to bring about authoritarian legislation, to have complete control over what anything says or thinks, right? That's why you need a climate core of youth, climate core youth, like a Hitler youth out there telling you what to think. And don't be a climate denialist, or we will send our youth against you.
Thompson Nicola.
Since these Liberals took power, extortion is up 330% in Canada.
What's going on? Oh, you buggers. Go back here. No, I'm connected to the internet. It seems to be a connection problem with the lower house. All right, let's go back here. Let's fix this. Get back into the sitting of the house. Kommen Sie her. Kommen Sie her. Come on, in progress. Let's start. Or is the website down? Well, there has been a lot of issues. Maybe it's just more sunflowers. Hello, come on. Sitting in the house. This is really strange. Let's change the calendar date. Let's go to a different date. We were almost done question period. Almost done. All right, so the house is still the house is adjourned. What? Am I on the right date here? Yes, we are. Okay, adjourned, in progress. Okay, let's go back in the house. There, now it's working. Or we're not. Just waiting for it to come up, folks. We almost were there near the end of question period. What is going on? I know it's not my VPN, because I've been making a habit of clearing that before its show starts. This is strange. Why is the server at Parliament Hill not working properly? Let's see if we can bring it up in another window. Do this again. All right, let's see if we can bring up the question period file that has been saved on their server. Well, this is really strange, folks. I've never had this happen before. We're streaming, so we know we still have internet. And yeah, looks like the server at the farm, the funny farm. Let's call Parliament that the funny farm. It looks like the server went down. Oh, well, look at that. This site cannot be reached. Well, one more try. Or not. Let's go back one more. Okay, well, while that's happening, I guess we will go right into our outro, which is what we had put together yesterday. That we might have shown as a supplement, but I went a little crazy this morning and decided to make another short video. So yes, so yesterday's outro is basically a little extension of the starting clip that you would have seen in the intro for today's show. And if you haven't read that, these are all in the descriptions. So typically every day for the nap, we put together a little intro, and there will be a couple of clips from the previous day's question period or the previous session of question period. And then those clips are usually expanded upon in the supplement. And then they used to be all part of the same intro. They were just shoved near the end, but then the intro got up to like 10 minutes long, and that's not an intro anymore. That's like a whole little episode itself. So now we are putting together separate little episodes as a supplement. And of course, they all have to do with Parliament, and they are great exposure on how our Liberal politicians are acting in Parliament. So when inevitably Canada comes for its next election, because all governments falls, every single government in the history of this planet has fallen. Even the communist governments, eventually they collapse in on themselves, and usually the same old gangsters come out on top, just in a different form of authority. But, there it is. Every government falls eventually, just like this one will. And in order to help expedite them, that's why all these little videos are there, so that when we finally do go to an election, you're looking for an example of how these liberals lie continuously, or will promise something and actually deliver something else, or underhandedly say something different than what they actually mean. Well, that'll all be there. And it looks like, oh, wow, studio shut down. I think we're having some serious internet issues. And well, we're not. Huh? Yeah, well, we're still connected, but the studio's down. So I guess we better wrap this show up before we lose complete connectivity. So yeah, let's just go ahead and do the outro, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully the internet's working then. Bye bye.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think anybody's been able to cram that many slogans into one answer, and this is coming from me. This is coming from me.
Mr. Speaker, let's look at some facts. I know the party opposite doesn't really like to talk about facts. Best credit rating in the world. Lowest net debt to GDP in the G7.
While specific universally agreed upon real-time data can be complex to determine, countries like Brunei, Hong Kong, Estonia, and Botswana typically have some of the lowest ratios of government net debt to GDP. In the G7, Canada and Germany have the lowest net debt to GDP ratios. This is the International Monetary Fund (IMF) website tracking general government rooms debt. Let's go down and use the Wayback Machine and take us to 2015. When the Liberal government first came into power and formed government, Canada's debt as a percentage of GDP was 92%. Germany was 71.2%. Let's move the clock forward to 2025. Germany has dropped. Their economy has done better. They owe less money now, at 64.4% of their debt to GDP. How has Canada fared? Canada now owes more. Canada owes 113.9% of its debt as a percentage of GDP. Canada owes more than it's worth.
The IMF has projected Canada to have one of the fastest growing economies in the G7. Mr. Speaker, we are laser focused on building the strongest economy in the G7. Mr. Speaker, the party opposite talks slogans and rhetoric and outdated slogans, but Mr. Speaker, we're focused on building the strongest economy. Mr. Focus, we will deliver for Canadians because that's what Canadians expect from a serious government. Thank you.
Canadians are cash-strapped and needed a break. Instead, the Prime Minister gave them the costliest budget in Canadian history and put it all on the national credit card. The Parliamentary Budget Officer revealed the Prime Minister doubled Trudeau's deficits, added $16 billion more to the debt than he promised, is increasing the debt to GDP ratio, breaking another promise. $78 billion of additional debt works out to about $5,000 for every single cash-strapped family in this country. How does the Prime Minister expect single moms and seniors and small business people who can't pay their bills to pay another $5,000 for his inflation?
Mr. Speaker, we will take no lessons from the Conservatives. Mr. Speaker, what they did yesterday under this leader, they voted against investment in infrastructure. Under this leader, they voted against investment in housing. Under this Conservative leader, they voted against productivity and innovation in our country. Under this leader, they voted against investment in our sovereignty, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we'll build a strong Canada, we'll empower Canadians, and we'll protect our sovereignty because we believe in Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think anybody's been able to cram that many slogans into one answer, and this is coming from me. This is coming from me. Let's take housing. He says they're spending billions of dollars more on housing. The results are out today. Housing starts down 17% year over year. Where we need the most in Toronto, down 42% year over year. Vancouver, 36% year over year. Ontario, down 35%. And BC, down 22%. Why is it that the more Liberals spend, the less that we can build?
The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the Leader of the Opposition is ignoring the year-to-date results. He's looking month to month. He's twisting the facts. He's getting confused in the numbers. Conservatives have a tough time with numbers sometimes. We understand that. Year-to-date, 2025 versus 2024, we are up 5% with housing starts.
The Leader of the Opposition.
What are Canadians getting for the 28 trips, $150,000 4,000 kilometers, enough to circle the world 4 times at the Prime Minister's Build Back to Canadians. Well, he met with the Americans, and they doubled tariffs on our steel, aluminum, autos, and tripled them on our forestry. He met with the Chinese, who increased tariffs on our farmers and fish harvesters. He met with the Indians. They increased tariffs on Canadian peas. He met the Brits, and they're keeping their blockade on our beef. Why is it that whenever the Prime Minister gets on a plane, Canadians end up paying more tariffs abroad?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
We have good news for Canadians. Germany just signed a $1 billion deal with Lockheed Martin Canada to support jobs right here in this country. This is what Canadians are getting from the Prime Minister being on the world stage, selling what Canada has to offer. It's about unlocking new markets and creating good jobs here in Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
With the Prime Minister billing millions of dollars for his high-flying trips around the world, 28 trips, 150,000 kilometers, now is the time for a scorecard. The Americans have increased tariffs on Canadian autos, aluminum, steel, and lumber. The Indians have increased tariff on our peas. The Chinese increased it on our farmers, our fish harvesters. Now, allow me to introduce a comprehensive list of all the tariffs the Prime Minister has successfully had reduced on Canada.
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader continues to stand against support for Canadian workers and businesses. He has refused to support our government's plan to double non-U.S. exports over the next decade. In fact, he called Canadian exports, other than oil, pixie dust. Does the Conservative leader think our $5 billion in beef exports is pixie dust? Or the LNG headed to South Korea from BC? Or what about the $7.6 billion worth of fish and seafood caught by hardworking Canadians? Whether it's imaginary taxes or pixie dust, the Conservative leader needs to get on board and out of the way, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much.
We'll take no lessons from the Conservatives. Mr. Speaker.
I don't think anybody's been able to cram that many slogans into one answer, and this is coming from me.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that, Mr. Speaker.
It's bad that minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Canada know that this government has their back. It will continue. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
The party opposite talks slogans and rhetoric and outdated slogans, but Mr. Speaker, we're focused on building the strongest economy. Mr. Focus, we will deliver for Canadians because that's what Canadians expect from a serious government.